Greetings and welcome to I Hate Mondays, a true crimes podcast, episode 3. I'm Michael and I'm here with
Anne-Marie.
And this week's episode, Anne-Marie will be telling the story. I have no idea what it is.
I really hope you like it today.
I think so. I think I'll enjoy it.
I kind of catered it for your liking, so let's see if you're going to jump in. So thank you so much for everyone who listened to our previous episodes. If ever you want, follow us on Instagram and Facebook. It's I Hate Mondays podcast for both. Also, like, subscribe, share to your friends and family. If you go follow us on the platform you're listening to, that would really help, and also give us a 5-star review because that boosts us up.
I also wanted to thank everyone who listened. I got a lot of positive, reception from it, and it was really appreciated. I hope episode 2 doesn't set the bar, but it just seemed like everyone enjoyed it, and I'm thankful for the support. And like Anne-Marie said, tell your friends, family, if they don't listen, just lock them up in the basement.
Or not. You don't have to do that. But we're really grateful, and we're like kind of blown away of what people have told us. So thank you.
And on to Anne-Marie's spectacular story.
So my sources for today is the readersdigest.ca, cbc.ca, museemontreal.org, canadianmysteries.ca, Wikipedia, journals.lib.unb.ca, or whatever that is. Last episode 2, we were talking about the Citadel. One of our listeners, my hairdresser, shout out to her. She worked at the Citadel for not super long, but she told me that the Citadel is still active and is still considered as an army base. Now, I didn't seem to believe Michael when he told me that, but it is true.
Why wouldn't you not believe me?
I don't know, man.
You think I'm making stuff up?
No, I don't. Okay. Well, let me start by asking you, are you more of a salty or a sugary person?
I'm more of a sugary person.
Breaking news. Okay, so I already knew the answer, but you guys don't necessarily know. If I tell you Redpath Sugar, does that ring a bell?
Redpath Sugar?
Yeah.
This is a company of some sorts?
Yes.
Never heard of it.
I highly doubt of it because we had it in our pantry.
Interesting.
Okay, so it's a brand of sugar.
Okay. So they're still around?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
Because if you live in Canada, I don't know if it goes anywhere else. It's one of the most common sugar you can...
company?
Yeah. It's like...
What is it called? Red Table?
Redpath.
Is it the one with the white bag that it comes in and it has like a red label?
Yes. Redpath is written in red letters.
Did I buy this recently?
Yeah. Not the one that you just bought. That's Lantic.
Okay.
But yeah. So what does that have to do with true crime, right?
Yeah, what does sugar and whatever have to do with it?
Well, the Redpath Mansion, which was a family house, hit a big mystery. 2 family members died in it. So what the hell happened, you might ask? Let's dig in. So before I actually talk to you about the actual case, I'm just going to leave it there that 2 people died, Let's talk about the family history. So the family patriarch, John Redpath, was born in Scotland and was an English-speaking Protestant. He went to Edinburgh. I do not know how to pronounce that in English.
Edinburgh?
Correct. For an apprenticeship with master stonemason George Drummond. John Redpath immigrated in Canada in 1816. In 1818, in case you didn't figure it out yet, that's a pretty old case that I'm digging in today. Like, the events happened in 1901. So in 1818, John Redpath married Janet McPhee, with whom he had 7 children. She died in 1834 of cholera, and a year later, John Redpath got married to Jane Drummond.
So what is cholera or whatever?
Cholera?
Yeah, what is that?
It was like a really common disease that people would die from. Like I have a computer right here. Back in the days. Oh,
Ew. What's that? What's that, brother?
it's like seeds still kind of. It's like Tamiflu with a bacteria.
Interesting.
Yeah, a lot of people were dying from that back in
Oh,
the days.
okay.
I think we eradicated it at some time.
Right.
Yeah, there was an epidemic of cholera in Montreal back then. So when he got married to his second wife, he had 10 children with her. Therefore, he's the father of 17 children.
Holy moly.
Yeah. John Redpath worked in the construction, more specifically in stonework. He worked on the construction of the Lachine Canal in Montreal, the Rideau Canal in Ottawa,
Whoa.
the Notre Dame Church, the Bank of Montreal, and the Théâtre Royal, as well as other buildings. By doing so, working in construction, he grew his wealth and he was able to purchase 235 acres of land, which is around like 1 kilometer for us Canadian, on the Mount Royal Hills, where back then pretty much of all the rich people were living. There's still like
Rich people there?
yeah, like you can see if you walk around Mount Royal, you'll see a lot of big houses. Yeah, so where he bought the land was called Square Mile, and that's where a lot of rich people lived back then. So he built a mansion on it for his family. He later sold a part of it of the land, which would later be used for the Mount Royal Park. I took you there on our first date ever.
Is it the Outlook Observatory?
That's part of it.
Oh, okay.
And the Mount Royal Cemetery. With all that new money coming in, he was able in 1854 to found the Canada Sugar Refining Company, now known as the Redpath Sugar Company. So John Redpath's sons, Peter, George, and John James, along with their brother-in-law of John, George Drummond. I don't know if it's the same George Drummond. He did masonry with the stone.
Oh, stonework?
Yeah, I don't know. But anyway, those people managed this sugar refinery. John James was the youngest son. He married Ada Maria Mills on August 20th, 1867 in Putney, which is near London in England. Now, I don't know exactly how they got married in London and like they lived in Montreal, whatever. There's like, just so you know, there's a lot of things in this case that are kind of like
Weird and random?
mystery and hidden from the population. Because like I will say that later, but this family really kept to themselves and didn't want to draw much attention to them. So there's a lot of things we don't necessarily know. Anyway, Ada Maria Mills, I'll just call her Ada from now on, was the youngest daughter of the Montreal mayor at the time, John Easton Mills. He served as a mayor during the cholera epidemic and was admired for his humanitarian efforts. So, John, James, and Ada had 5 children together: Amy, Peter, Reginald, Harold, and Clifford. And they were all born between 1868 and 1876. In Ada's will, she was giving her estate to her children. But the interesting part is that she stipulated that any case Amy, the oldest daughter and also the oldest, got married, she would be the one in control of her part, not her husband, which would have been the normal thing to do because women back then were either belonging to their dad or to their husband. So John James did work for the sugar refinery and he became a partner in 1860. He left the company in 1868 and he became an officer in the Victoria Rifles. Now, if you wonder what the Victoria Rifle is,
I'm assuming it's a rifle company that manufactures rifles.
no, not at all. It's an infantry regiment. It's basically an ancestry of the Canadian Army, if I'm not mistaken. So Ada bought the Redpath Mansion in November 1870, located at 1065 Sherbrooke Street West. So yeah, the fact that she bought the mansion surprises me for the year, but yeah, that's pretty cool. But I don't have an explanation why.
She bought the mansion.
No.
Is this mansion still standing?
Unfortunately, no. So we cannot go visit it.
I do know that there's a lot of these heritage buildings, and Yeah, the city of Montreal didn't really care too much. I think it was during the whole Rene Lévesque ordeal, and they're just tearing down English buildings.
Yeah, pretty much. I'll come back to that later. But yeah, pretty much what happened with the decline of
The English
the rich English society,
group.
wealthy English community. So, a bit about the mansion. It had been designed by an architect named John James Brown. It was two-story house, plus an attic and a basement. A lot of their neighbors were Redpath's family home, since if you remember, the patriarch had 17 children, so you know they got houses too. And they were all on a large part of land going from Sherbrooke Street to your favorite avenue,
Dr. Pencilfield, what's his name?
Dr. Penfield. The Dr. Penfield Avenue.
Dr. Penfield.
So, as I was gonna say 2 seconds ago, yeah, the Redpath Mansion was demolished in 1956.
What?
Yeah. I didn't do this on purpose to choose this particular case. It's just like in my findings, I was like, oh, that's so funny how it's like related to the last one in the political environment, not really but what happened. But yeah, the richest people in Montreal back then were English speakers, and like a lot of them came from England, Ireland, and Scotland, and they really pretty much built a big part of Montreal. And Montreal is the way it is because of them, still to this day, even though a big part is destroyed. And the fact that the mansion, because like it just was let to decay, which shows that there was a decline in the English speakers elite. That's the word I was looking for. Which, yeah,
Coincidentally?
coincide.
Oh, coincide?
Yeah. What I talked about what we talked about in the last episode about the popularity of the party, like the Parti Québécois. Now, if you don't know what we're talking about, just go give us a listen. Episode 2, we talk about that. Anyway, back to our people. John James died in 1884 of paralysis. And
Sleep paralysis?
I don't know. It's just a mention of paralysis.
Interesting.
And he was buried in the Mount Royal Cemetery.
So he's still there, so we can go pay him a visit.
Most likely.
Cool.
Yeah. Starting around 1880, Ada started having a lot of health problems. Okay, now the terms are really like old terminology, so I don't really necessarily know what it is. And like the medicine was not as advanced as today, so like what would it be now? I don't know. She had ulceration in her eyes, neuralgia of her jaw, painful joints, which she needed a brace for, and also melancholia.
What are these things? I understand the brace, but what are the three other things?
Yeah, I don't really know. To be honest, I think probably melancholia refers to like depression, which was not diagnosed back then. But I have a feeling it's something like that.
This sounds like a George Washington thing.
Sure.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
When George Washington had a headache and he thought the evil spirits were taking over, so the doctor cracked his skull open to let the spirits out. And I think he died that way.
Oh, God.
It was a very common thing to do back then.
Crack the skull.
When you had a headache, it was like the bad spirits or something. So they would just crack your head open.
Hey, you. You might want to get out of the rain and into some dry clothes. Don't want you to catch a cold or even a sore throat. That's how George Washington died. He caught a severe throat infection after being outside in the cold, wet weather, like the one we are having right now. Doctors tried treatments like bloodletting, which is removing blood. Doctors back then thought it could balance the body's fluids and cure illnesses. I thought I would let you know. Yeehaw!
What did man, just listening to the how they did health stuff is just so strange but fascinating at the same time.
Yeah, it's pretty scary. I don't know what I was listening to, probably some true crime, but like I know that a while ago, I think it was like abortion or something gynecologist, and it was not done with
The way it's done now?
it was not you had no anesthesia, so it was just like
Oh, they just do it then and there? Oh my god.
yeah. So yeah, Ada's health was really deteriorating.
Deteriorating? Deteriorate. Fuck.
This is not the learning channel, guys.
Deteriorating.
Deteriorating? There we go. And she had to spend her summer in a sanatorium in New York. If I'm not mistaken, sanatoriums were like an ancestry of like hospital. There was like nurses taking care of you or stuff like that.
Is this like a mental hospital? Before there were labeled mental hospitals?
They were specialized in tuberculosis treatments. Doesn't say that she has tuberculosis, to be honest. So I don't know. Maybe they did other things. Yeah, and why did she have to go to New York for that? I don't know. There's so many things I don't know. So the more time passed, the less she was leaving her bedroom. Amy and Clifford, so Amy the oldest and Clifford the youngest son, they were the one taking care of their mother. In 1898, Amy stated, because Amy was keeping a lot of diaries of everything, she stated that Ada felt like life was being a burden for her. So, for her mother, life was being a burden for Ada. So Amy, as the oldest and only daughter, was in charge of the household because that's the way it was. So she was the one in charge since her mother was a widow. And at that time, apparently, when your mother was a widow, the oldest daughter was the one taking care of the household. It was normal practice for the time. Also, she had to postpone any plans of marriage she would have had to be able to take care of the household until the mom would pass. So since the family was pretty rich, taking care of the household doesn't necessarily mean the same thing for you and me and then for her. It was more like hiring the maids and the servants and the nurse that's going to take care of the mom and hiring like the construction worker, the repairmans or whatever. You get the picture. So around 1900, Ada's estate was valued at around $180,000, which would be around a few millions today. Before 1901, two buildings were built, the Redpath Library as well as the Redpath Museum. They're now the property of McGill's University. Talking about university. If you ever pass in front of that university on Sherbrooke Street, I believe, there's a big gate there in the front, and it was commissioned by Amy, Ada Maria's oldest daughter, in memory of her late husband, Thomas Roddick, who was Dean of Medicine at the university.
Wow. We gotta go.
Yes, we can.
Oh my god, I didn't know there was so much history in that one corner.
Yeah, it's a bunch of like really elite people we're talking about.
But they really did shape out Montreal for what it is today.
Yeah, they
if it
really
weren't for
did.
them, I mean,
it would be different. I don't know how it would be, but it would be different. Okay, so now let's jump right in. On June 13, 1901, a bit before 6 p.m., Clifford got back at the mansion where Peter, which was the oldest son, Clifford went upstairs where Ada's bedroom was. Peter heard one gunshot and then two others. He ran upstairs to find what happened, broke the door, and found Ada and Clifford lying in a pool of blood and a revolver on the floor. Clifford was several feet away from Ada, and the revolver was a feet away from Clifford. That being said, another version said that the revolver was in Ada's hand, but I'll come back to that later. So Ada was shot in the back of the head and Clifford in the left temple. He was transported to the Royal Victoria Hospital in an unconscious state. He had foam in his mouth, which according to doctors could indicate a recent epileptic attack. He died around midnight on the same,
On the same day.
yeah. Died.
Yeah, obviously with the pool of blood in the back of the head.
Yeah, she didn't go to the hospital. She was just
She was
dead.
already dead.
Yeah. Now, the interesting part in the whole thing is we don't know much. And also, the police was not the one taking care of the case. Instead, a coroner, it's a public officer.
Like a private officer? Because
Well,
public
no,
officer
he's
would be the cops.
no, he's a government or judicial official who is empowered to conduct or order an inquest into the matter or cause of death. Like, let's say someone died, I don't know, on some random street, and they don't know who it is because the person didn't have IDs. It's gonna be the coroner job to figure out. It's also like the one who's gonna like figure out what's the cause of death and stuff like that. But yeah, usually there would be like detective coming to the house or police officer coming to the house and figure out what the hell happened, but that was not the case. Instead, also like it's kind of odd because like that being said though, even if the police would have been called, forensic techniques were pretty limited at the time. There was no ballistic analysis, autopsy, blood spatter analysis, So all we have is like circumstantial. We're just relying on the testimony of the people who were there at the mansion. So that like,
They just heard gunshots and that's all they can go off of.
yeah, exactly. So did the family avoid talking to the police to avoid a scandal? I don't know. So the coroner conducts an inquest. An inquest is like the job of the coroner to figure out what happened, like to figure out the facts of the death. So in the inquest, the report says, and I quote, "We, the undersigned jurors, having heard the evidence, declare that Clifford Jocelyn Redpath died at Montreal on the 13th day of June 1901 from a gunshot wound inflicted by his own hand while suffering from temporary insanity caused by an epileptic attack from which he was suffering at the time. He being at the time unconscious of what he was doing." Pretty interesting. Like, I didn't know that an epileptic attack could cause temporary insanity. Honestly, I don't think that's actually a thing.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think the science medicine, not well discovered, I guess you can say. Or,
Yeah, it was limited.
yeah, it was limited. Foaming at the mouth could have been anything.
Yeah, it could have been anything.
Maybe he went hiking a few days ago and he got bit by a raccoon and now he has rabies.
Like, who know what happened? Apparently, also, this interpretation of the epileptic attack and the insanity comes from the Redpath's family physician. Do you know who that was?
Dr. Penfield?
No, it was Thomas Roddick, Amy's husband. She married him 5 years after the murders. That being said, there is no records of suicide in Montreal in 1901. So how did he do? On top of that, there is no document stating that Clifford actually had epilepsy. Amy, who was a playwright, because that's what she becomes, she had written a lot of diaries, as I said earlier, and there's no entries in any diaries that was found talking about that. But I'll come back to that though. So 48 hours after the murders, both bodies were buried in the Mount Royal Cemetery. So that means that the investigation was concluded. But what I'm wondering is that the official coroner's report, is it actually true? Now, it is said that the family really did keep to themselves, as I was saying earlier, and they probably didn't want to make a big press at the event. But still, how odd is it that we're left with only Peter's testimony of the event and a few servants?
So no one else was in this room?
Nope.
Was someone in there and all three of them were fighting and then cap, and then the guy hopped out of the window and ran away?
I don't know. I'll come back to theories later. So yeah, just before I dig in those theories, let's just talk about Clifford's life at the mansion a bit. So in 1901, Reggie and Harold, the two other sons, they were not living at the mansion. So it was only Amy, Clifford, and Peter who lived there. So the two other sons were living in Pincher Creek. It's in Alberta, but back then it was not in Alberta because Alberta became a province in 1905. So it was the Northwest Territories. And the other one was living in Westmount in Montreal. Peter, he was not always home because as his mom, he had a lot of health problems and he was getting treatments in Europe, in the Laurentides, in Quebec, in the States. He even died of tuberculosis in 1902. Amy was the one taking care of Peter and getting him treatment, so she was traveling with him. So while she was away, it was Clifford who was taking care of his mother. So he would go with her when she had to spend the summer in New York sanatoriums, for example. Clifford graduated from McGill's University in 1900. A few days before the events, Clifford submitted his application for the bar examination with a signed check of $70, which was the fee for the application or
That's
the
pretty
exam.
cheap.
It is pretty cheap. And there's even a receipt of that. So just a few days before he died, if he sent his application for the bar exam with the check, was his plan really to kill himself? So let's dig into some theories because we don't really know what happened. Like we can take the coroner's inquest report for granted for cash, but I feel like it's a little odd. So, as the coroner inquest states, it could have been Clifford shooting his mom because of insanity caused by an epileptic attack. But as I said before, there's no evidence of Clifford suffering from epilepsy. Also, how much insanity can that cause for you to like actually kill your mom? Like I don't really buy it. Was it really an epilepsy or he had seizure and the medicine was not advanced enough, so we don't really have the proper term, so we don't really know what happened, but still I feel like it's kind of far-fetched that he would kill his mom during whatever thing. Except if it was like a psychosis, okay, that's a different thing, but there's no mention of that. Nothing that resemble. Unless they called psychosis epilepsy. I don't know, man.
Maybe he had a seizure
Yeah, maybe.
or he was starting to have it.
But like, why would you, like, how? Like, he had the gun in his hand and like seizure and then click? Like, I don't know.
I have no idea. Did he have the gun on him the whole time?
I don't know. Did he came back home with the gun in his hand in his pocket? Like, I don't know. We don't know.
Was he drunk?
I don't know. We don't know
He
anything.
had too much sugar?
Maybe. You know that sugar apparently is as addictive as Coke.
Oh, yeah?
Is as bad as cocaine.
They're sugar. They're
They're a legit sugar company.
right.
No Coke.
No, I understand, but their sugar is more addictive than Coke? Is that what you're saying?
It's like similar, the level of addictivity. That's why it's so
Oh.
hard to stop eating sugar, because it's really addictive. Another theory is that Clifford decided to kill his mother either because he was tired of the burden of taking care of her, or maybe it was her who requested he kills her to end her suffering. Now, keep in mind that in 1901, there was no such thing as the medical assistance in dying, as the law making it legal passed in 2016 in Canada.
A whole century later.
Yeah. So maybe since it is said that Clifford and Ada were really close, maybe she felt more comfortable asking him that. In both cases, maybe Clifford committed suicide after killing his mom because he couldn't bear what he has done, even if it was her request. Another theory that I've found is that maybe Peter might have done it out of jealousy because when the murder happened, he was alone in the mansion. So maybe the story didn't go exactly as he said. Maybe he was jealous of the relationship Clifford had with his mother and he decided to put an end to it. Another theory is that Ada wanted to take her own life. In an article of the Toronto Globe published on June 14, 1901, it is stated that Mrs. Redpath had a revolver in her hand. perhaps with suicidal intent. And blah, blah, blah. We don't know what's said there because I didn't find that part of the quote. Her son, in trying to take it from her, was accidentally shot, and that his mother then carried out her intention.
I just want to say, I haven't heard the name Toronto Globe in so long. Wow.
Do you know how long ago it stopped publishing?
No.
I don't know. That's a
I
question.
remember hearing that name, Toronto Globe.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever heard of it, but still, I'm a little francophone from Quebec, so I mean, I didn't really read that kind of thing.
Well, hello there. The Toronto Globe started in 1844. In 1936, it merged with another newspaper, the Mail and Empire, and became the Globe and Mail. Today, it's one of Canada's top national newspapers.
Yeah, so as you said earlier, maybe it was an intruder getting in the house. And I can imagine that being so wealthy, maybe the family had enemies who wanted to profit off of that, or maybe they wanted to see them dead. But I mean, there's no really proof of that, and it isn't said anywhere, anything. So we don't know exactly what happened to Ada and Clifford, and Amy made sure a lot of it was concealed. In a letter sent to Alice, her sister-in-law, in August 1901, Amy states, "I spent yesterday sorting and tearing up old letters. Rather a mournful business. As I was saying earlier, she wrote a lot of things in diaries, and people didn't find any proof of the epilepsy, whatever happened.
The seizure?
Yeah, in the diaries, but maybe she just destroyed it.
Right. In the fire?
She tear it down. So did she do it out of shame? Did she do it to protect the name of a wealthy family?
Maybe they were just trying to protect their name associated with the business.
Yeah, maybe. It could be, because like one kind of like a murder inside the family could
Bring down the whole monopoly.
could.
Well, it was not a monopoly, but bring
Yeah.
down the empire, I guess.
Yeah, the empire of the company, and it was a pretty good company. So, and if that was the case, well, she did succeed at concealing it and not making a scandal out of it, because we don't know much about it. Like, I've never heard of that, and I've bought Redpath sugar so many times in the past. There's also like one little other theory that I can mention about Amy, is that apparently she was really close to one of her servants, Rose. And there is rumors that they were actually romantically involved. Even when Amy got married to Dr. Roddick, they would have been romantically involved. Fun fact, when Rose died, she was first buried in Notre-Dame-des-Neiges Cemetery, which was like for not the rich people.
So this person's there.
Hold on. No, because she was first buried there. But a year later, Amy requested that she is disinterred and reburied in the Redpath slot in the Mount Royal Cemetery.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and then Amy added a plaque on the Redpath monument stating, "Mary Rose Shallow, 1870-1943, beloved companion of Lady Roddick." So, my personal theory is that maybe Amy was a lesbian and she was trying to conceal it somehow, because when you unveil a part of a mystery, the whole thing usually comes out. So maybe she was trying to cover the whole thing. Or maybe not, I don't know.
Do you know when same-sex marriage became law?
Oh God, that was recently.
But I
Oh.
feel like it was kind of done near Pierre Trudeau time. Because there is a quote of him saying, like, it's none of the government's business what happens in the bedroom.
It's bringing the laws of the land up to contemporary society, I think. Take this thing on homosexuality. I think the view we take here is that there's no place for the state in the bedrooms of the nation, and I think that, what's done in private between adults doesn't concern the criminal code. When it becomes public, this is a different matter.
The Civil Marriage Act 1 legalizes the same-sex marriage, was passed on July 20th, 2005.
Wow. I thought it would have been sooner, but...
I think it was progressively introduced in several provinces.
Oh, so it wasn't Canada, it was just...
Yeah,
It was up to the provinces.
I think so. Okay, in 2003, Ontario and British Columbia became the first two provinces to legalize same-sex marriage. Honestly, I'm not surprised at British Columbia. I'm kind of surprised at Ontario. Props to them.
Why? Why are you so surprised?
Because I don't know. I feel like the Ontario is a bit more conservative.
I don't know. I don't think so.
I felt like it would have been more like Quebec and British Columbia, like the two like more open left.
Right, but I would say Ontario is very open. Our slogan is open for business.
Not open for same-sex marriage. Anyway.
Well, that's not our slogan, but when you go into the province, that's what it says.
Yes, on the big panels.
Yeah, it's yours to discover, but...
Yeah, so the Federal Civil Marriage Act came into force in July 2005. And fun fact, Canada became the third country to permit same-sex marriage after the Netherlands in 2000s. Of course, it's the Netherlands that does it first, and Belgium in 2003.
Of course.
Of course, too.
Of course, that corner.
Yeah, of course, which is pretty cool. Good job, people. Yay, cool. So yeah, no, back in 1901, we were very, very, very far from legalizing that.
Well, it's very Catholic here, so being caught doing that stuff is like a no-no.
Yeah, well, the family was Protestant, but it's same deal. It was like super religious. Yeah, maybe it was a part of that she was trying to conceal her own personal life, or maybe it was that, and like she didn't want to create a scandal that would ruin the business or something.
Right, but if she was caught like having relations with this woman and it went out publicly at that time, I think the business would have tanked because like, oh, you're buying
lesbian sugar.
Yeah.
Now, Amy was not a partner in the company, but still it's her name. Well, not after marrying, but still it's her company's business. Her family's
business.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Do you have a theory, Michael?
No, but I think the last theory could be more true than the other ones.
The one where Amy is a lesbian, or I mean, I say lesbian. Okay, don't get me wrong. Like she could be bisexual, she could be pansexual, which didn't exist back in the day. She could be just queer. Okay, I'm saying lesbian just
right,
like that, but like
that seems more plausible because like Canada was a different place than compared to now.
Yes.
So, yeah, I think that one's more plausible. That or the intruder.
Yeah, maybe.
But I feel like that the lesbian one is, to me, the vibes just seem more in that camp than anything else. Him being foam with the mouth and being, what was it, insane or...
Yeah, insanity from epilepsy. That makes no sense to me. Yeah. That sounds like a cover-up.
Right. It could be that.
And honestly, like maybe he had foam in the mouth just from like getting shot. Like who knows?
Well, he got shot in the temple. So like maybe it hit some sort of body function
that created foam.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. So yeah, that's it for the mystery of the Redpath Sugar Mansion. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the story today. And don't forget to like, subscribe, share, give us a review. And in 2 weeks, Michael will be the one telling us a story. I have no clue what he's going to say. I'm really intrigued of what story he's going to bring to the table.
Well, I can tell you, buy an airplane ticket because we're heading to the States.
Ooh. First state case.
Ooh.
We're getting out of Quebec and Canada. Well, thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you in 2 weeks.
See you then.
Bye-bye.